What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a video that I wanted to make for quite some time now for the 2022 Vitpilen 401, but I wanted to wait until I had owned the bike for an extended period of time and I put an ample amount of miles on it. So at this point today, I've owned the bike for a little over a year and I put 3,350 miles on it. So I think at this point I formed a pretty good opinion, a pretty good understanding of what the midterm ownership experience is like on these Vitpilens. Let me start by saying I don't regret my purchase at all. It's a great bike. It's fun to ride. I mean, in a year, I've put 3,300 miles on it and I've got other vehicles to drive. I've got another bike to ride and I still put quite a bit of mileage on the Vitpilen 401. So it's not like I hate riding it or anything like that, but there are a lot of little annoyances that after a year of ownership, they are starting to get to me a little bit. I don't think that I'm at the point where I want to sell it or anything like that yet, but it is starting to get a little bit annoying and I intend to go over some of those things in this video, and I'm hoping that will help some of you viewers kind of make a better decision if you are thinking about buying a Vitpilen 401 or a Svartpilen 401, or if you purchased one recently. I think the information that I've been able to collect over a year, going through kind of the maintenance schedules for the Vitpilens, riding it in all different types of weather, including rain, riding it on for extended periods of time, and also going through kind of the common modifications for these bikes, as well as modifications that are not so common on these bikes. I've gone through all that, so I formed enough data, formed enough information to where I think I can pass that on and help you viewers out. And here it is, the Vitpilen 401 to 2022. Most of you have already seen this bike, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of time going over it. But for those that haven't, this is the subject matter of this video here. You can see it's got quite a few modifications done to it. It doesn't have everything done to it, but it's got quite a bit. It definitely has all the common modifications that you would do to a Duke 390 or one of these 401s. Okay guys, and the biggest issue for me, the biggest annoyance for me with these bikes is the quality is really not very good. I don't want to say it's terrible, but I know it's a small bike, it's not very expensive, but I still expect a little bit more. You can see how the fairings fit on these, and I'm not the only one. Whenever I see a Vitpilen or Svartpilen at a dealer, I look at it really close to see if they have similar fitment issues, and all the ones that I've looked at have been like this, right? So here you can see the gaps are not quite right on mine. This fitment here is really poor. So you can see it's really tight, kind of right where the gas cap is, and then opens up. Same on the other side. Not as bad though, but it does tighten up here at the gas cap. The fasteners here, you can see that they're not anywhere near centered to kind of this embossed area or relief area where the fastener is supposed to sit. You can see they're all sitting cockeyed. I noticed this the other day too. It's hard to see, but there's actually a crack in the finish here in the matte white. I don't know if that was always there and I just didn't notice it, but yeah, so it looks a little bit worse in person, but yeah, there's this crack in the finish. So I mean, does it affect anything functionally? No, of course not, right? But it does get a little bit annoying, especially this area here, because when you're riding, you see it, right? It's right in front of you. And same thing with my gas lid. It doesn't sit the way it's supposed to. So yeah, I mean, it's not gonna like leave you stranded or anything like that, but it's pretty annoying. And I noticed even on the like OEM Plus Husqvarna parts, so on mine, I have the OEM Plus levers. And if you look close, okay, so on my clutch lever here, you can see this is an OEM Husqvarna part. You can see that this part of the lever, it's a really flat anodized black. And this part's a lot more satin, okay? When I go to the brake side, this lever matches 100%. So this part is not that kind of matte finish that like it is on the clutch side. It's got this more of a satin, wet look to it, to the anodization. So, you know, not a huge deal, but kind of annoying, right? You can see the color difference there. I mean, they don't charge a ton for these levers, but it's still kind of annoying that that is the way it is. OEM Plus seat, this is the ergo seat. It looks cool. I do like the way it looks. I like how it's got this Vitpilen thing on the back here. It's a cool looking seat. It did add a lot to the aesthetic of the bike. I do like this embroidered yellow thing here. It's pretty cool. But I've had this seat for a month and it stains super easy. And I noticed this the other day. Hopefully it'll focus. But it looks like the material shrunk. And now there's like these stretch mark looking marks on the seat. So I'm trying to get the camera to really focus in on that. But yeah, I just noticed that the other day. So, you know, end of the world, no, but kind of annoying. Oh yeah, and I forgot on this, on my ergo seat, that's how the emblem fits. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I tried everything to get that to fit. I have a video on, specifically on this seat. I just can't get that to fit properly. And it's because of the way the foam is shaped here. So, you know, not gonna leave you stranded, but kind of annoying. So those were just kind of aesthetic issues, just kind of minor annoyances with the bike. But I've also had some little bit more serious mechanical issues with it as well. I had the coolant leak, which I have a video on how to fix that, or how I fix that. My display still does not work completely all the time. So the center part of the display, the part that will display your fuel mileage and things like that, it does not always work for me. So typically if that does happen, I just ride anyway, because I don't necessarily need to know how many miles I have left to empty, because that measurement is always off anyway. And these bikes have a fuel level gauge anyhow. But if I do want to fix that display issue, I need to turn the bike off, turn it back on, basically cycle the key, and it will, 9 times out of 10, the display will start working again. Also had the stalling issue. After I went to the Fuel X Lite, so basically got the bike tuned, that stopped happening. So what would happen is, if I was at a light, just idling, neutral, or first gear with the clutch pulled in, once in a while the bike would just die. It would just shut off. And there were a few times where I was decelerating in gear and at a low speed, like, you know, maybe less than 15, 20 miles an hour, the bike would shut off then too. Pretty common issue with these. I don't necessarily blame Husqvarna or KTM too much for that, because I think a lot of that has to just do with the Euro 5 emissions. So I don't blame them too much for that, but it is an annoyance. The coolant issue, that's another common one, well documented. The display issue, also well documented. It's not just specific to this bike. It's pretty well known that those are common issues with these bikes. Also had the chain stretching issue. So on mine, I think I'm on my 4th chain adjustment. So the first 3 chain adjustments, those came right away. I think within 1,500 miles, I had adjusted the chain 3 times already. And yes, I know the spec for the chain. I wasn't over tightening it or anything like that. It was within spec. In fact, I would usually leave it a little bit looser than where it's supposed to be, just slightly. And the chain would always just get loose and it would just stretch. And it wasn't the rear wheel moving or anything like that. It was the chain that was stretching. So I'm hoping now after the 4th chain adjustment, it's kind of done stretching for the most part until it's ready to be replaced. But again, another well-known issue for these bikes is the poor quality of the chain. So I know a lot of you guys will probably say, well, the bike's under warranty, it's brand new. Why don't you just take it to get a warranty? Why don't you just take it to the dealer? Well, it's not necessarily that simple. It's kind of a hassle to go to the dealer, right? I have to get picked up and then I have to get dropped off when the bike's done. I don't know how long I'll lose the bike for. So I may drop the bike off and, oh, hey, you know what? We plugged in a brand new display, but that didn't fix it. There's something else that needs to be changed. Well, now I either have to go pick the bike back up and then drop it off again some other time and then pick it up again some other time, or wait for them to get the part. And we all know KTM, Husqvarna, their parts availability kind of sucks sometimes. So it's just really a hassle. So a lot of these issues, if I can fix it myself, I usually do. And luckily these bikes, they are easy to work on. And I'm fortunate that I have a place to work on this bike. I have a garage, I have plenty of tools. I'm not a master motorcycle mechanic or anything like that. I don't have super high mechanical skill level, but I have some skills and some knowledge, at least enough to fix some of these small issues. So that's kind of why I typically don't use my warranty for little small fixes for these bikes. And really, I think others may be in the same boat anyway. There's not that many Husqvarna dealers out there. Some KTM dealers will service these bikes, but not all of them. So for any potential buyer, the nearest Husqvarna dealer, it might be a couple hours away. It might be more than a couple hours away. Then what do you do? So that's kind of the point of this video is, that way potential buyers or new buyers are aware of those issues, just in case they fall into those categories where even if they wanted to, they can't really use their warranty because it's a 5-hour round trip to the dealer. Another minor annoyance on these bikes is the fuel tank is really small. So under these fairings here, the gas tank is super small. So your range is not very good. You're constantly filling up, especially if the bike's tuned. I know I lost a lot of range when I tuned this bike. When I added the Fuel X Lite, I probably lost maybe 20 miles of range, which if you only have 130 to start with, 140 to start with, going down to 110, 120 miles of range is a big difference. So if you live in a rural area where there's not that many gas stations around, that may be a consideration for you. If you're planning on taking this bike on a long trip, that's a consideration for you as well. You're going to be constantly filling up because the range is so short. The gas tank, it's only about 2.2 gallons or so, something like that. So for me, I'll get, with the Fuel X Lite and some of the modifications that I have, and with the 185 pound rider, I get about 110 to 120 miles of range, but it also depends on what type of riding I'm doing. I notice these bikes, you lose a lot of fuel economy when you're traveling at a much higher speed. So, 85, cruising on the freeway, you're gonna eat a lot more gas as opposed to if you're going 70. So I don't know if a lot of that has to do with it being a naked bike, so there's a lot of drag, or if it's because the motor is working so hard because it is so small and has such little power. There's probably a few factors there, but I do notice that tremendously with this bike. If I'm going 85, I get way less range as opposed to 70, whereas something like my Ducati, obviously totally different type of bike. There's hardly any change in range if I'm cruising 85 as opposed to 70 on something like that. So the third kind of I gotcha with these bikes is the price is a little bit deceiving. So I'll just be forthcoming on my bike in California with sales tax and delivery or freight and all that stuff, all the document fees. It was about $7,100 for everything out the door, okay, everything. Okay, so not much for a brand new bike, especially one that's, kind of sporty, looks kind of cool, a little bit unique. Obviously, it stands out in a crowd as opposed to a Ninja 400 or something like that. So considering what you're getting, not much, right? Not much cost. However, it's kind of an I gotcha thing because these bikes, you do have to put a little bit of money into them to really get them, not to where they're rideable, but just to get them to how they should have been from the factory. So for example, these bikes, they come with, because of our US DOT regulations, they come with these really super goofy looking turn signals with the bulb in it. So, you pretty much, these are the OEM LED ones from basically any other country except for the United States, but you pretty much need to do that modification. The stock incandescent incandescent ones, they also start sagging because they're so heavy. So you pretty much have to change those. So again, it's just a cost that you don't really expect, but you pretty much need to do it. Same thing with the mirrors. They have the super goofy like bunny ear mirrors. You have to find a solution for that. I just have some bar ends on the end of my mirrors, but even if you are okay with the aesthetic of the stock bunny ears, they vibrate so much that you can't even use them anyway because of how long the stems are on them. So figure you're gonna spend a couple $100 there. You're gonna spend at least a couple $100 on the LEDs. These bikes need to be tuned because the Euro 5 garbage, so a couple $100 there. They don't have much of an exhaust note. These bikes are super quiet. Again, not really an issue with Husqvarna. It's just how the emission standards work and sound requirements work. But I would at least decat the bike. I'll at least put a Cooper downpipe on it, or Cooper manifold, I should say, that deletes the cats. So there you go. You have another couple $100 there. The gearing on these bikes are super short. So if you're planning on using this bike for anything beyond just in the city, if you're going to use it for even a little bit of freeway, just a little bit, then you could pretty much count on having to change the front sprocket. So I went with a Formula 390 front sprocket. It's a +1. It is the most expensive option of front sprocket for these bikes, but I figured I didn't want to have to keep changing all the time. But you know, again, you're gonna have to budget for that too. I think the Formula 390 sprocket is $100 or something like that. So just right there, right? I started with a $7,100 bike, and just to get it where it's rideable and usable and a lot more pleasurable to just ride, I had to spend another, you know, $800 plus there. So just right there, now you're at $8 grand, right? And that's not really, there's still a lot of other things that you should probably do, but I would say the gearing, the mirrors, the turn signal, the tune, the decat, those are pretty much required for these bikes. I feel, at least. I would not want to ride one of these without that handful of modifications. And the final annoyance with these bikes is just the parts availability. So for sure, any of the OEM plus Husqvarna parts, if you don't happen to find it in stock or find it on eBay, you're not gonna get it for a while. So any OEM plus part that I bought from Husqvarna, I've had to wait months to get it, which is super annoying. They'll provide a estimated ship date and they'll just keep pushing it back. So your ship date will kind of come and go, and they'll say, okay, next month. That next month they'll come, they'll say next month, next month, next month. I think my ergo seat, I think I waited, I don't know, 6 months or something like that, something ridiculous to get that stupid seat. So a little bit annoying. Some of the other aftermarket parts, same thing. A lot of the tunes, like the Fuel X stuff, the V4 and the Fuel X Lite, the Pro, that all comes from India. So that stuff does go out of stock sometimes. It does take a little bit to get to you just because it has to come from India. A lot of the carbon fiber parts for these cars, or for these bikes, they're manufactured by Taiga. They're in Thailand. The rear sets for these bikes, Taiga as well. So they come from Thailand. Taiga is usually pretty good about their manufacturing. They tend to have decent availability, but they do still go out of stock, and there will be periods of time where they are hard to find. Those parts are hard to find. So just kind of a minor annoyance. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but the parts availability is nothing like the Japanese bikes where you could just get almost any part you want at any time. These bikes, I guess because they're so low production, they're just not near as popular as Ninja 400, R3, et cetera, et cetera. There's just less parts availability for them. So kind of look out for that, especially if you're not an impatient person, but if you don't like to wait, then maybe these bikes are not quite for you, just for that simple fact. And that'll wrap it up for today, guys. So I do like the Vitpilen 401. I ride it all the time. I don't regret the purchase at all. In its class, there's nothing else I would rather have. Maybe like a ZX4 RR or something like that, but that's way more expensive. Other than that, I wouldn't want anything else in this particular genre and engine size in a motorcycle. So I do like the bike, but there are a lot of little annoyances with these, and they start getting a little bit old. and everybody's situation is just a little bit different. So I'm not out here trying to tell people what to do. I'm not out here trying to discourage anybody from buying one of these bikes. I'm just trying to provide my experience, sample of one, so that way a potential buyer could take that information and just either, they could disregard it if they want to, but I just want to put it out there. I just want to share that, hoping that it will help somebody in their purchase decision, because these bikes, they're not expensive, but I mean, again, I paid $7,100 for this bike out the door. That's not nothing, right? That's not an insignificant amount of money. And I also had to spend a lot of time tracking it down. So I know now the supply is much better than it was summer last year. But at the time, I had to spend a lot of time last year trying to track one of these down. I spent, a couple of weeks trying to find one that wasn't marked up or didn't have ridiculous document fees and stuff like that. So that being said, guys, do what you want. But I hope that the information that I've been able to share today, I hope it does help at least somebody. And as always, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, go ahead and comment down below. I try to answer pretty much everybody. And again, just share what I've learned in this year and 3,300 miles with this bike. So anyways, if you like what you see, please like, please subscribe, please share. It helps me out a lot. And we'll see you guys next time.